guys to this video where I will be breaking down 6 players who I think will have a very, very good chance of breaking out this upcoming NFL season. And what do you classify a breakout? Because, we see guys mid-20s, late 20s have resurgence in their careers, career years. Is that classified as a breakout? I don't think so. I think when you look at guys who break out, it's early in the league, and the word breakout, and when you use it in the NFL, I think it's more of like establish. I think you see these guys their first year of a good stretch in their career at a young age. So I think I've found 6 guys kind of in that category who I'm very high on this upcoming season and will have a very good season. So starting out, number 1, the guy we talked about last video, Caleb Williams, quarterback of the Chicago Bears. Let's state the obvious, right? Last year, Matt Eberflus, Shane Waldron set nobody on that team up for success, including themselves. That's why neither of them are on the team this upcoming year, and you get a complete coaching rehaul, some roster turnover. It just wasn't a good team, man, from top to bottom. Eberflus and specifically Waldron, who was going to be running that offense, because Eberflus, well known as a defensive coach, it didn't pan out, and that happens. I was really surprised that Poles ran it back with Eberflus and Waldron when they drafted Caleb Williams, but it is what it is, and they kind of botched year 1 with him. Outside of Eberflus and Waldron, you look at the O-line play of that team right there. There was some major question marks specifically on the interior of that team this past year, and it showed against teams who were able to scheme up certain blitzes, certain packages, specifically up the middle, like I said. And Caleb Williams, who you watched him in his USC days, there was times that he was running for his life and making some crazy throws out of the pocket. But at the NFL level, guys like Jalen Carter and Vita Vea, these defensive tackles, and then you get along with the edge rushers. I mean, you're not going to have much success running for your life outside of the pocket, even if you are the Patrick Mahomes and those type of improvising quarterbacks, right? It's tough to do at that level. And the lack of development, I kind of spoke about it a little bit in the last video. His coaches aren't sitting down and watching film with him, not telling him specifically what to look at or what to watch. He's kind of doing it on his own, as he states in that kind of breaking article that happened in the past couple of days. I thought that was absolute madness, man, specifically a rookie quarterback, and just shows, once again, how big of a joke Eberflus was as a head coach, and then Waldron. And the thing with Waldron, a player we'll get into later down the list I'll touch on, while he's had some success in terms of rankings for his offensive years as a coordinator, it seems like, I'm not saying that it was a fluke, but could it be some talent over scheme, like a situation like that? Maybe. His luck, I guess, kind of ran out, and he's in Jacksonville, I believe it is now, with Liam Cohen. But let's talk about the good, man. This isn't to sit here and talk and bash these players on what went wrong. This is what is going to go right for them this upcoming year. So, obviously, elephant in the room, Ben Johnson comes in to coach the Bears. That is like going from, I don't even know, man, a low-end 1 to a 10, right? He will absolutely revive this offense. Last year, specifically with the Detroit Lions, you look at Ben Johnson, they averaged almost 28 points a game, 5th in the NFL, almost 400 total yards per game, which ranked 3rd in the NFL, 259 passing yards specifically, which was 2nd with Jared Goff, and then rushing yards, 135 with both Monty and Gibbs there. Gibbs more down the stretch where Monty got hurt, but 58 total touchdowns. Red zone touchdown percentage, they were 1st in the league at 66.7%. In passer rating overall, 103.1, which was 1st in the league. So looking at the stats that Chicago had last year in those certain categories, this will be a major upgrade just on paper in terms of their head coach, but he will ultimately be calling the plays and running the offense and things like that. It'll be a complete upgrade. And you look at the overall scheme of Ben Johnson compared to Shane Waldron, it seems a little bit, I'm not even going to say a little bit, there's obviously major gaps in this, right? There's gaps in everything you do. Gaps in jobs, gaps in shoes, gaps in clothing. Like, there are levels to absolutely everything. And Ben Johnson is tiers ahead of what Waldron will ever be at his cap as an offensive coordinator or coach in the NFL. That's just being honest, and that's the truth. So you look at the way that Ben Johnson had to run his offense in Detroit, right? It was structured and tailored to Jared Goff's strengths, which was facilitating a system that prioritized play-action passes. Without the dominating run game that they had with Monty and Gibbs, does Jared Goff have the success that he does when teams are having to pack a little bit more bodies in the box to help out with that run game? I don't know. There's also crazy talent on the outside there in Detroit with Amon-Ra and J-Mo, but you see what I'm saying. He tailored everything towards Jared Goff. So imagine what he's going to do with Caleb Williams, who I'm not saying he is a better quarterback overall than Jared Goff at this moment in his career. Jared Goff been to a Super Bowl, won playoff games, things like that. But if you are looking from a true, pure skill aspect, Caleb Williams is a much more talented quarterback than Jared Goff. He's much more mobile in the pocket, in my opinion. Once again, some of that due to just the poor O-line play. But he's a much more talented quarterback. Arm strength, pocket presence, I think. He's able to get more things done with his legs than Jared Goff. So I think this opens up a completely new door, a completely new book of plays for Ben Johnson and what he can do with Caleb Williams and Odunze, DJ Moore, Loveland, Burden. Like, there's guys all around that offense in terms of skill position. The one question is the running back room, right? DeAndre Swift. They draft Kyle Monangai out of Rutgers in the 7th. Those are kind of the two bodies they're going into the season with. Roshan Johnson as well, who's been there for a couple years. Believe this will be his 3rd. Are they the team that goes out and makes a late signing for J.K. Dobbins, Nick Chubb? It's yet to be seen, but that's kind of the one room in their offense where it's like, there's sort of question marks, but I think they have an idea of what they want to do with both Swift and Monangai. Maybe Swift is in that kind of Gibbs role. He would be my bet as the kind of the more workhorse back. And Monangai kind of fits that Montgomery role where in between the tackles, kind of a more power running style. And Kyle Monangai led the Big Ten last year in rushing yards. So obviously a sneaky pickup there in the 7th. And then obviously a revamped O-line. You go out, you get Joe Thuney from the Chiefs, 4-time Pro Bowler, I believe it is. Just flexibility as well. You can kick him out to tackle. We saw the Chiefs O-line was so bad that it got to that point. But flexibility if you want it. Also add in the center from Atlanta and trade for Jonah Jackson from the Rams, I believe it was. So completely revamp the O-line and give yourself a new look. I think that Caleb Williams is going to be miles ahead of where he was last year. And he was concealed. I mean, what we saw last year was not the Caleb Williams that we watched at USC and Oklahoma. And part of that, once again, was the way that Shane Waldron was scheming his offense, and just a lack of putting Caleb Williams' strength at the forefront of the offense. So number 1, Caleb Williams. I think he has a breakout season this upcoming year. Next up, man, let's talk the number 8 overall pick from last year's draft class. Another quarterback in this list, Micheal Penix Jr., quarterback of the Atlanta Falcons. Such a weird scenario what happened with the Falcons, and I've kind of said time and time again, I don't think they know what they're doing. Some of the moves that they have made in the past 2 years in the offseason have been unbelievable. And this is no shot at Penix, right? But you go out and sign Kirk Cousins for his contract, $200+ million, and I know there's an out after a certain amount of years, but then a month later you turn around and draft Micheal Penix Jr., 8th overall in the draft, and you look at the first year, right, of his season, or his career, I should say, in the NFL, right? Kirk Cousins off an Achilles injury, rookie year Micheal Penix. I think you end up with the same exact record that the Falcons did this first year. So they shot themselves in the foot by just stunting. I'm not going to say his development because he's an older quarterback entering the league, but, you know, the transition period from college to NFL, they just kind of, similar to Caleb Williams, just kind of botched it. They should have jumped. They should have went with him from the jump. I think they signed Kirk Cousins and then just fell in love with Penix throughout the draft process. Pulled the trigger on him at pick 8, which I have absolutely no problem with. I think he's a really good quarterback. That was a little high for me at draft day, but he was a first-round pick in a quarterback class that included Caleb Williams, Drake May, Daniels, Bo Nix, and then McCarthy, who we only saw in a little bit of preseason games. I won't give him that treatment of the guys that I just mentioned, but I'm going to go ahead and push my chips in on the fact that he's going to be pretty I'm not going to say pretty good, but good in the NFL, right? I'm not going to bet against those odds considering how some of those quarterbacks have panned out from that draft class. But Micheal Penix Jr., we did get to see a little bit of him later on down the season when he did finally get to start. And what we saw was rookie quarterback. Ups and downs. I believe he ended with even numbers in terms of touchdown and interception. So we got a little bit of a sample size, but definitely not full season, obviously, right? His past 2 years at the University of Washington, 4,600 yards, 4,900-yard passer. I actually had the chance to watch him in the last Pac-12 championship game in Allegiant Stadium there in Las Vegas when they played Bo Nix and the Oregon Ducks. And you can just tell, man, this guy has easy arm talent. He's able to push the ball downfield with ease. And that's kind of his MO, right? He played with Jalen McMillan, Halim Polk, and Rome Odunze there in Washington, and that was it, man. They played the deep ball a lot. They had really good success with it, and I think his game as a NFL quarterback, as a college quarterback, transitions really well to NFL. And I actually like the pairing of Zach Robinson with him. Zach Robinson comes from the McVay coaching tree, good offensive mind. I think he may have been a little bit handicapped by Kirk's subpar play in certain weeks this past season for the Falcons. I think we saw more with Rodgers, some due to age, but also the Achilles injury. Both Kirk and Rodgers coming off that same injury. Once that happens to you, especially at their age, you lose mobility in the pocket specifically and just kind of become a statue in there. But nonetheless, Micheal Penix, left-handed, which is something, him to us, so a little bit different. But I think, once again, if they fell in love with him through the draft process, right, this means that Zach Robinson had to say, yeah, like I see something in this guy that he can run the offense that I want. And not saying that he didn't have any say or anything that happened with the Kirk Cousins signing, but I would say that he was definitely happy and excited to get Micheal Penix in the running there in the quarterback and start his NFL career. So you look at Penix's situation. First off, in a division where every single year everybody picks, that's the most split division, I should say. Some will go Bucks, some go Falcons every year. Not recently here with the Panthers, but even last year there was people with the Saints with Derek Carr, and it's crazy, man. But he's surrounded by a lot of diverse weapons, right? You look at Drake London, a physical receiver, a true X receiver from USC, sharp route running. London, his first year was a little up and down, but last year really showed that he could be a true number one receiver in the NFL, a guy who will have a really good season this upcoming year, and the guy that everybody loves to talk about when it comes to fantasy football, Kyle Pitts. The word that I kind of use to describe him now is just wild card, because I think this is it, man. If he doesn't produce something this year, to the talent at which he was drafted, his draft capital. I know his first year surpassed 1,000 receiving yards, but you're looking at Pitts to be a guy that you depend on in your offense, not somebody where you're like, is he going to show up today? Is he going to get open? Like 50-50, you know what I mean? This has got to be a guy that it's no doubt about it. He's going to be open here. He's working certain parts of the field, especially with London and Darnell Mooney. That's the thing, right? If Darnell Mooney is your wide receiver too, you're looking for a lot of help from your tight end spot, similar to those Chiefs days where it was Tyreek Hill at your one, and then Sammy Watkins, who, don't get me wrong, was absolutely awesome for them, but in terms of wide receiver two, maybe not what you were. He wasn't the best option, I'll put it that way, right? But you had Travis Kelce, who was taking so much off that receiver room because of his production. I look at that in a similar way with the Falcons, where they're going to kind of be depending on Pitts here to produce a little bit this year. And hell, he should have really been on this list, but I'm so done giving him chances and talking about him that he didn't even deserve my time to talk about him. But Penix is going to have London to work with, hopefully Kyle Pitts in terms of the receiving, and then also we know how good of a runner that Bijan is, in my opinion, top 3 to 5 running back in the NFL, but he also provides a lot of stability in the receiving game. And having a running back, specifically young running back, in Bijan Robinson in what will be your first full year in the NFL is going to be so crucial for Micheal Penix Jr. I would look for Zach Robinson to lean on Bijan a lot this year to open things up and make it easy on Penix. And it makes a difference, man, when you have to plan. We talked about the Ben Johnson, like Gibbs and Montgomery. When you have a really good running back and teams have to plan so heavy for them, it opens up the pass game in so many ways. I think that'll kind of be a staple in their offense this upcoming season. So I would look for Micheal Penix to have a really, really good year this year. And when I say really, really good, I'm not saying that he's going to come out and throw for 5,000 yards and 40 touchdowns. But I'm one of the people who are pro Micheal Penix, right? I think he's going to be a good quarterback in this league. When he got picked 8th, a lot of people were like, oh my gosh, what the da-da? And I did. I was like, it made no sense because of the Kirk Cousins, like I just explained. But the talent, I never had a problem with the talent. That wasn't my issue. I thought he was better than, honestly, coming out of the draft, I thought he was better than both Bo Nix and McCarthy. Bo Nix obviously landed in an awesome spot with Sean Payton, so I'm hoping Micheal Penix and Zach Robinson kind of fit that mold of he's in a great spot. He's got some different type of weapons, right? I'm not going to say that they're all kind of in the same tier with London, Pitts, and Bijan in terms of the way that they play, but it will work, right? It will work if Zach Robinson schemes things up the right way, and Micheal Penix can be a successful quarterback in the NFL, and I would look for him to break out, I guess I should say, in this upcoming year and kind of get a start, right, on his real NFL career instead of just seeing him in those couple games this past year. So number 2, man, Micheal Penix, quarterback, ATL, purple do-rag and all. Number 3, let's bounce over to our running back in the NFC. Let's talk Javonte Williams. Now, the Cowboys are so interesting, specifically in that running back room. And I think one thing to look at and remember, when you look at players who can break out, right, half of the battle is just opportunity. These guys have to have a chance, a spot, really just quantity. They have to have the amount of carries to break out, the amount of receptions in terms of receivers, the amount of opportunities. So Javonte Williams is walking in to opportunity, and that's half the reason he's on this list for me. 2021, he's second-round pick. Obviously, we're there with the Denver Broncos. 1,200 yards, 7 touchdowns as a rookie in that year, but never was able to match either of those numbers in the following 3 seasons. Had the injury and kind of went up and down. So he gets the benefit of a new look, a new city, new team. And when you look at this running back room, right? Miles Sanders this past year, 55 carries. Jaden Blue, fifth round pick this past year. Phil Maffa from Clemson, who's more of a power running back, a little bit of a different running back than everybody else in this room. So I don't know how much we would necessarily see him, but he is going to have the first crack at this starter role, right? And I know in the modern day NFL we see multiple backs, but more times than not, you're going to see one guy with 60 to 70 more carries than the second guy, and that's just how it is. And I think when you look at Javonte Williams or Miles Sanders, because I think Jaden Blue is that RB2 in that room, whoever doesn't win the starting role between Miles Sanders and Javonte Williams will be pushed down the depth chart behind Jaden Blue, because I think he's really explosive and will be a difference maker from the aspect and carries that he'll have and the role in the offense, if that makes sense. So when you look at Javonte Williams versus Miles Sanders, right? Miles Sanders this past year, 55 carries, was kind of non-existent there in Carolina after Philadelphia. Javonte Williams, fell off a little bit in the end there with Denver, but I like his chances more than I like Miles Sanders. And I actually think, funny enough, that he will have a similar year to what Sean Payton had, to what Miles Sanders had in his 2022 season in Philadelphia. In 2022, he ran for 1,300 yards, 11 touchdowns on a good team, good offensive line play, and was the number one option there in the running back room, and really nobody else to challenge him. So I think Javonte Williams, if he can beat out Miles Sanders, right, Jaden Blue will factor in a little bit, but he'll have the quantity to put up some really good, maybe even career numbers this year if he stays healthy and has a good season. The one thing you have to think about with Dallas and why this is a good spot, the wall of Tylers, as people are calling it. Tyler Smith, first rounder. Tyler Guyton, first rounder. Tyler Booker from this previous draft, first rounder. Terrence Steele, and then Cooper Beebe, their center. So a really good run blocking offensive line. And you pair that with Brian Schottenheimer, the new head coach for the Dallas Cowboys, who a direct quote from him this offseason: "I'm proud to say at 2 different times in my career as a coordinator, we led the league in rushing, and they go hand in hand. The running game and play action pass game go hand in hand." So you have a coach who's coming out and saying, we're going to establish the run, we're going to work our offense off the run, open up play action that way for Pickens and CeeDee Lamb, make it easier on Dak. You're going to be looking at somebody in that running back room to be the one to open the pass game up. And I think Javonte Williams is going to have the most chances at this. Now, whether he succeeds with this or shits down his leg and is no good and they roll with Blue or Sanders or somebody else, they could also be a team that looks at Chubb or Dobbins closer to the season. I don't know. But as it stands here today on May 18th, I like Javonte Williams. I think he has a chance to be good this upcoming season and kind of turn his career, right? We see a couple of these running backs, James Robinson, Jay Ajayi, like a couple of these guys have a good year in their first or second year in the league and then are no longer in the league and completely gone. And I hate to see that to happen to Javonte Williams. And I said Sean Payton there earlier by accident. One thing I did want to mention, Sean Payton's scheme helped Williams to 72 targets last season, 5th among running backs this past season. So good receiving back, nothing less, which I would say better than Miles Sanders. So if something happens where it's Jaden Blue as the number 1 and Javonte is chipping in at that 2 role, at least you would be looking at some receiving work. But I think he could be a 3-down back for them. Not that Dallas would do that, obviously, like I said, with the way that the running backs are working in the NFL. But Javonte Williams here, the first running back on this list, will be my number 3 to hopefully have a breakout year this upcoming season. Number 4 on this list, and the first wide receiver, Xavier Worthy, wide receiver from the Kansas City Chiefs. This past season, 638 yards, 6 touchdowns, 3 rushing touchdowns, and then 3 total touchdowns in the playoffs. A guy we saw so much because of the Chiefs being in primetime games and just overall everything media is always going to talk about the Chiefs and they're always in the spotlight. We saw a lot of him and felt, including myself, I felt like he had way better statistical numbers than he showed this past season. But he was thrown into the spotlight really, really early. Hollywood with the shoulder injury preseason, and then Patrick Mahomes takes out and sacrifices Rashee Rice's kneecap early in the season. And that threw Worthy into that wide receiver 1 role, which A, I don't think he was ready for at the time, and B, I think once we finally saw Hollywood come back, we saw the role that was destined for Xavier Worthy. Later on in the season is kind of when we saw a little bit of glimpse of what he could be in this offense, and on the verge of breaking out. I don't think he necessarily broke out in his rookie season because he would have had better statistical numbers, but as I just said, the beginning of the year made it tough on him. Back to what I was saying, when Hollywood came back, we finally saw the role that Worthy had in this Andy Reid offense. And it benefits Worthy way more than it does Hollywood. Hollywood is that vertical field stretcher that opens up the offense, and it allowed D-Hop, who they went out and got, Juju, Kelsey, to work that middle of the field. And it allowed Worthy to be closer to the line of scrimmage, kind of be that quick, twitchy guy, use him in motion, kind of similar to the Tyreek Hill days in a sense, but they've been trying to replicate Tyreek Hill since he left, and it just hasn't worked, and I don't think it will. And that's just kind of how good Tyreek Hill is as a receiver in the NFL. But like I said, Worthy played closer to the line of scrimmage and was able to have way more success because he wasn't playing that vertical field stretching role that he had to play when Rice would have never played it, but when Hollywood wasn't there, they didn't have anybody else to really do that at a high level. Justin Watson, Juju, he had to do that for the offense to work, and it didn't. And the Chiefs struggled mightily on offense last year. We saw a lot of games, their defense was the one that really kept them in games and won them games. So I would look for not only the offense to have a way better year next year, but Mahomes as well. And if Mahomes is going to have a good year, it has to benefit some of the receivers, right? And hopefully you're going to be getting a full season of Rashee Rice and Hollywood Brown, but I don't think Hollywood Brown is going to be the statistical kind of he won't surpass 1,000 yards. That's what I'm trying to say. It'll be Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy carrying the load, and I think we could see Xavier Worthy right around that 1,000-yard mark after next season, and 10, 12 touchdowns, both receiving and rushing. We've saw Andy Reid likes to use him in the rushing game, and that would be, I would say a breakout season for Worthy, kind of solidify himself in that offense and in the league. If you're a 1,000+ yard receiver with the Chiefs, you're going to have a pretty good career and be pretty successful for a long time, right? Worthy as a receiver, we know speed kills. We know that's what he's kind of made on, but separation is better, right? That was kind of the question that I had, at least coming into the league. He's a little bit of a smaller, skinnier receiver. How will he create separation? Will he be able to get open against these more physical corners? I mean, he's seeing Pat Surtain 2 times a year. Really talented corners all over the NFL nowadays. But I think another offseason, a full offseason for him to get even better, more accustomed with Mahomes and the offense from the jump, hopefully, with Rice and Hollywood, and hopefully better. I don't know what better looks like, but more involved Kelsey, I guess I should say, considering what we saw last year from him. And I just think we'll see a major leap from Xavier Worthy, and he'll be the first receiver on my list here that I think will break out here next season. All right, man, let's talk some Rome Odunze from the Chicago Bears. Similar to Caleb Williams, the coaching staff absolutely killed him last season the same way that they did with CW. And not only did Waldron kill Caleb Williams, he killed Rome Odunze. And that's all right, man, right? Waldron couldn't use him properly. He could not use Rome properly in this offense this past year. And something to consider and think about, the previous season when Waldron was in Seattle, he had rookie JSN, and he couldn't use JSN right either. And we see the benefit of Shane Waldron leaving Seattle. We saw the benefit of that JSN received because of that, right? He had his breakout season last year. We saw what he's capable of in the NFL. And I think we're going to see something similar here from Rome Odunze. Not comparing the players of JSN and Rome Odunze, but production-wise, I mean, this is when it looks like when you're a rookie receiver and you get freed from the scheme that Waldron was providing, you're in for a good year. And just the trend happening right now. But Rome Odunze, as a player, right, top 10 draft capital, very good route runner. Played, remember him at UW. He was a very explosive player. Seemed to just always be open. I mean, he would catch the ball and cornerback or whoever was guarding him would be 5-10 yards away from him. It just seems like a guy like that's always open, is a quarterback's best friend. But this past season, 734 yards, 3 touchdowns. I'm sure it was just it was rocky for all Chicago Bears this past season. I don't think a lot of guys were happy with their production. So if Caleb Williams is breaking out this season, similar to what I just said about Mahomes having kind of a bounce back year, if Caleb Williams is having a career year, then who does that benefit? All right, it's going to be the receivers, the tight ends, and I think Rome Odunze specifically is going to be the one that benefits the most from this. I think this is another guy similar to what I just said about Worthy, could be pushing for 1,000, 1,100 yards, double-digit touchdowns, and really in this Ben Johnson offense, where it'll be fun to see where he lines him up. With Burden now a part of the mix, DJ Moore is always steady, and we saw Ben Johnson. I mean, it got so easy for him this past year that they were faking fumbles on the ground and throwing touchdowns in certain plays. So I don't think he'll have any problem using a talent like Rome Odunze in this offense. And I'm not really concerned about his target share. I think that's the thing that people are maybe criticizing Rome Odunze specifically, but just all of the Bears skill players. What will target share look like? You draft Colson Loveland, you got Kmet, you got Burden, you got Moore, now Rome Odunze. I don't think that it's going to be a problem because he's going to be super efficient with his usage in this offense. Kind of similar to what we saw with J-Mo this past season. We saw big plays from J-Mo, and I don't think that Rome Odunze is going to have that vertical deep threat role in this offense that Ben Johnson had J-Mo running this past season. But be very efficient, working the intermediate level of the field, working the deep level of the field at times. He'll be kind of the explosive playmaker in this offense that Ben Johnson likes, right? Maybe we could see him in that Amon-Ra slot role that was produced Amon-Ra 1,500 yards. So with so much versatility this upcoming season from Rome Odunze, inside in the slot, outside on the boundary, it'll be very fun to see what Ben Johnson ends up doing with Rome. I think he'll have an easy breakout. I think out of everybody on this list, I would say him and Caleb Williams are my 1 and 2. Same team, and a lot of it has to do with how high I am on Ben Johnson and the weapons that are on this offense and how they were not utilized this past season. And he'll be a direct benefit from Ben Johnson. That's as easy as it is to say. And the final player on this list, going to sneak in another quarterback on you. Trevor Lawrence, the prince down in Jacksonville, who can a quarterback have a breakout year if they've already made the playoffs and won a game, and not only won a game, but came back and, the Chargers absolutely blowing that game in 2023. Another game in Herbert's kind of playoff mishaps, right? That one, and now Houston, where he had the 4 interceptions. But besides the fact, Trevor Lawrence, rookie season, had to deal with the whole Urban Meyer absolute disastrous rookie season. You look at how myself, and just kind of media treated that. Well, he kind of gets the pass, right? Super talented quarterback, bad coaching, kind of similar to Bryce Young with Carolina, Caleb Williams, obviously, and a ton of other first overall quarterback selections in the drafts where it just kind of, you get a pass, right? It's not your fault. It's not your fault you had to deal with a bunch of bullshit. We'll see. We'll go into next year. Doug Peterson comes in, produced his best statistical season, right? 2022, 4,100 yards, 25 touchdowns. And then that next season where I mentioned they made the playoffs, he had 4,000 yards, 21-14 touchdown interception ratio. So it's like he had the team success there in 2023 with Peterson making the playoffs, good season, all of that. Similar year there in 22, but he never just had that, what we were expecting, right? 4,500 plus yards, 25 to 28 or more, maybe even 30 passing touchdowns. Like, I just think we're all expecting more from Trevor Lawrence. And if he doesn't live up to that, maybe it's just guys like me putting heavy expectations on him, expecting a lot more, because the arm talent is obviously there. Him as a quarterback prospect, I mean, this is the same guy that we were comparing to John Elway and Andrew Luck as a quarterback prospect going into the NFL. So what puts him on this list, right? Well, I think Liam Cohen is the guy that can take him to that level that we were expecting from him. Not only Cohen and what he did in Tampa Bay and really just everywhere he's been in terms of offensive production, but look at the surrounding pieces that he's going to have this year. Brian Thomas Jr., that entire receiving core, there's one word to describe all of them, and it's explosive. BTJ, explosive wide receiver 1. Travis Hunter, who they just drafted. I mean, whatever they decide to do with him in terms of playing snaps on the offensive side of the ball and defense, we'll see. But I would have to imagine that they're going to want to get the most out of him as a receiver because that's how good he is on the offensive side of the ball. And with an offensive-minded head coach now, I would second-round pick who's doing this two-way stuff. Hey, I want this guy on my side of the ball, right? We'll mix him in there, corner a little bit, third downs, whatever. Certain packages, maybe come in, play the nickel. But I want this guy on the field for all of my offensive snaps. I have a good feeling that that's Cohen kind of expressing himself about Travis Hunter. And then they went out and signed Diami Brown, who had a hell of a stretch down the season this past year for the Commanders, and will play a big role for them in that wide receiver 3 spot. Your running back room, ETN, who was dealing with kind of the hamstring injury this past season. I believe it was hamstring, but just injuries in general kind of factored into his disappointing year and team success as well. There was just no point to even, he played, but I don't know. It was kind of an odd situation, but somebody that benefited from ETN having a down year, right? Tank Bigsby. So you hate that Tank Bigsby and ETN are both in this running back room if you're a fantasy player, but in reality here in the NFL world, this is a good or maybe even an awesome situation to have. Tank Bigsby and Travis Etienne, kind of different style rushers, right? You look at what Cohen dealt with last season in Tampa Bay. Bucky Irving, could Bucky Irving kind of be the Etienne and Bigsby be, I want to say the Rashad White? It's kind of an odd comparison, but you get where I'm going, right? It's just two different backs. They also drafted Bashaw Tutin from Virginia Tech, who was a really good running back, just kind of had some fumble issues coming out of college, and he could be a sneaky guy that could really take some snaps away in this offense from Tank and Etienne. But Liam Cohen this past year for Tampa Bay, almost 30 points a game, which was fourth in the NFL. 393 total yards per game, third in the NFL. Passing yards, 245. Rushing yards, 150. Yards per play, he was fourth in the NFL with 6.2. Third down conversion rate, they were first in the NFL at a 50% clip, which is it's unbelievable. It's absurd. And red zone touchdown rate, they were 66.7%. So you look at Trevor Lawrence, who struggles specifically in the passing touchdown department in his career, right? 25, 21. Red zone touchdown rate of 66% combined with Brian Thomas, Travis Hunter, bunch of guys. I think that we're going to see a statistical career year from Trevor Lawrence in terms of passing yards, passing touchdowns. The interceptions at times can be a little high for him, but you know, if you're taking shots downfield, like people praise and love Jordan Love because he's a gunslinger, Brett Favre mentality, but he also throws a ton of interceptions, but he puts up pretty good yards in passing and touchdowns at times. It's kind of the swing and miss in baseball, right? You'll have your interceptions if you're pushing the ball down the field, which in Trevor Lawrence's case, he's a very good deep ball thrower. He statistically has success throwing the ball down the field. So you pair that with everything that I just said, Liam Cohen and the way that he's going to run this offense and really good pieces around him, use all that, and then factor in the division is completely winnable with Tennessee Titans and a rookie quarterback, C.J. Stroud, who took a step back this past season, and just Houston in general I'm not necessarily sold on this upcoming year. And then the Colts, who if you're going out and bringing in Daniel Jones for quarterback competition, you can't be taken serious this upcoming year. So all of that factored in with individual success that he could have this upcoming season and then team success if they win the division, make the playoffs. I think after this upcoming season, we could be talking and viewing Trevor Lawrence way differently than what we are now. I think he could jump a couple tiers up. He could definitely pass some guys where maybe right now he's sitting in that top, 12 to 15 range. I'm just spitting off the top of my head. I don't have a ranking list in front of me, but he could potentially start jumping some guys that maybe it's like, oh, yeah, he's definitely better than him, or he's definitely better than this guy. So I think that Trevor Lawrence is sitting in a really good spot, really good head coaching hire that they got. Liam Cohen, that whole situation was crazy. They fired their GM to get this guy in the building, right? That whole situation where Cohen was like, I'm basically not going to coach for this guy's GM. If this guy's GM, I'm not coming to coach. And they completely fire him, bring in Gladstone, who's a bright young mind. I think that he's going to really get this team, as far as roster construction-wise, for the future, really, really good young mind. A lot of people were thinking he's crazy for trading the future first for ultimately Travis Hunter to trade up. But I loved it. I mean, take the swing, man. Let's go. So I would look for Trevor Lawrence here to have a breakout year statistically, and hopefully some team success comes along with that as well. And that'll wrap things up, man. Let me know what you agree with, what you disagree with, or maybe a guy that I missed, and you're really high on this upcoming season. So like, comment, subscribe, guys. Appreciate you watching, as always.